lad.
The Hovis campaign is, well, ad in particular, is so phenomenally good because it's a historic brand that captured the public's imagination and had a brutally powerful commercial effect. It simply says, I want to create an emotional resonance with my audience. I don't want to tell them anything, I just want to make them feel something. And TV is still comfortably the best way of making an audience feel something, as this paper proves in spades.
I joined Premier in March 2008. And I must admit, I think it was literally the Sunday before I started my job. I picked up the Sunday papers, and the headline on the business section of the Sunday Times was, "Is Premier toast?" with a picture of Robert Schofield, our chief executive, coming out the toaster. And I knew it was going to be a tough job, but I must admit, I read that, and it really did sink in what a big job it was going to be.
When we were first starting to look at Hovis, the brand was in real trouble. It had been about 2 years of declining sales and share, and the product had been underinvested in. The advertising hadn't been all that, and the packaging hadn't changed for quite a while.
On the back of pretty poor quality, too much dealing, pretty poor communications, Hovis's market share drops away very quickly. Bread market's pretty competitive, so you've got Hovis, Kingsmill and Warburton's, and a lot of the retailers were starting to think that actually they could probably cope with 2 brands rather than 3. So distribution on Hovis was really under threat, and the people that worked for the company were really noticing that and really starting to fear for their jobs.
Perhaps the biggest challenge was almost an internal one, though, because the brand had become synonymous with being old-fashioned.
You know, Hovis had this incredibly famous advertising heritage called Boy on the Bike that was filmed in 1973 by Ridley Scott, and yet somehow people had been sort of scared by that.
Last stop on round would be old Ma Peggoty's place. 'Twas like taking bread to the top of the world. 'Twas a grand ride back, though.
The launch objectives were really simple. It was about catapulting Hovis back into the hearts and minds of the British population.
One of the first things that I did was to pull together basically a new agency team to work on the brand, and I was really keen to pull together a bunch of people who shared the same sort of sense of almost sort of annoyance that such a fantastic famous brand had fallen upon such hard times. So one of those was a PR agency called Frank PR, who had a great reputation, and the other was MCBD, and they were desperate, absolutely desperate to turn the brand around, and you could see the sort of passion they have for the brand, you know, as soon as I met them.
They came to see us with this huge belief in this brand. I mean, genuinely, it was palpable when they came to see us, and their ambition for the brand. And immediately then, you sort of sensed that it would be riskier to not do this. You know, there's a real sense of one moment in time to really pitch this brand right back up there.
And to get consumers again to realise that Hovis was a real bread that was produced by a company of real bakers. And the challenge to MCBD was to produce absolutely the best work that they could possibly make.
The more we delved into the brand's history, we could see how powerful heritage could be. Principally this idea that the brand has always been there at the big moments in history and in time, and always been an unerring source of everlasting goodness. And we developed this idea of legendary goodness, this idea that legends have got a foot in both worlds, both in the past and in the present. They're living, breathing things. And then goodness was a word we just couldn't avoid. And there's so many great stories, from the fact that the brand was named in a competition 120 years before user-generated content became fashionable. Hominis vis is the Latin for the strength of man, and we thought, what a great thought, the strength of man. Let's do something really big and gritty and important.
And the strength of man, when you sort of apply that to a bread, it just fits with a sort of British sensibility around never surrender and keep going and striving to get to somewhere.
When we first saw the idea, it was one of those jaw-dropping moments, because we immediately knew that we were onto something really incredible and special. And then it was about making sure it lived up to those initial high expectations, so we were very careful not to filter out any of the bad moments in history. It was important that we had the miners' strike in there and the wars, and it wasn't an airbrushed version of the things that have gone on in the past.
I will always remember the day that the idea of the advert was first presented. It's just one of those memories that's sort of etched on the brain. So Danny did a fantastic job. So he gave us his sort of elevator speech kind of pitch, which was very simple. This is a story of a boy running through 122 years of British history to bring a loaf of bread back to his mum. He then used two incredibly powerful mood films to kind of get the idea across. One was about British history, basically, the sort of highs and lows.
2 World Wars and 1 World Cup and everything else either side of that felt really sort of powerful within the room.
And the other was a film with lots of little montages of kind of kids running, Kes and those sorts of films. And then he talked through the script itself.
And then there's absolute silence. There's nothing. I can remember it. It's making me feel a bit nervous now thinking about that. Not a peep from these people.
It's just one of those moments where you just you feel a reaction which is as much sort of physical as it is emotional, and it was real proper sort of hairs on the back of the neck moment.
We'd filled a wall with post-it notes, and just there were 3 of we picked them off, and there was 3 that if you put them down next to each other, you can see that they really are the ad. It's Britain, bread, and boy. Take any of those out and you haven't really got the story.
The selling process was pretty straightforward, and initially we did some qualitative research and got incredibly strong response from consumers, which was, it's good to have that kind of confidence. I then presented it to Robert Schofield, and I was a little bit worried because it's going to cost quite a lot to make the advert, but in fact there was absolutely no mention of that at all. The reaction was fantastic. It was just, you've cracked it, just get on and make the ad because it's going to be fantastic.
We knew we had a truly epic TV ad coming our way for this campaign, and we effectively tackled it in 2 stages. First stage was to maximise the impact of the spot that was coming, and ensure that the public really kind of got excited about it and maximised the cut-through that it had. So the second phase was very much to build on the power that the brand activity had carried out and elevate the products more and more. So we had a best of both. We talked about 400 grams, and we used press activity to give them much more detail and push people in store.
The commercial was filmed in Liverpool. Each one of those moments is a commercial in itself, really, because we had to close off a road for a blitzed house or a street party. They were really, really, really thrilled that this big number about Britain was being filmed in their city. When we filmed the street party for the coronation, it was a really special moment because there were people living in the houses on that street in Liverpool who had lived in that house in the early 50s. They'd been brought up there as children. So they literally came out of their house with photographs of the street party on that road. So, it's the best thing you could have for the art department. They could really see where the bunting hang, how the tables were laid out, what kind of sandwiches were what kind of jelly and all sorts of things. So it was a genuine recreation of that moment. When we were filming the soldiers going away for the First World War, I cried, a bit emotional. But this was a really powerful moment. We enlisted the help of men and women who reenact these marches, and they do it in the troops with the correct sort of hierarchy. So it's perfectly done. There's a tiny moment that really, really bothered me. I got a bit obsessed by it, but the little boy, Brian, I didn't want him to salute like a American from a film. I didn't want him to do a rubbish Elvis Presley salute. I wanted him to do a British soldier salute, and it's that attention to detail. All right, a little bit anal, but I think it's important. Just imagine if we'd got that wrong, because it's just such a moment where a little boy connects with the army.
PR got involved from the very beginning. John insisted that all the agencies sat down through the planning stages and worked together right from the beginning through to the end of the campaign. One of the great benefits of working so closely with the ad agency is we got to feed in along the whole sort of production process of things that would work brilliantly for PR. So when they were casting, we used that as an opportunity to sort of get some murmurs out amongst the media about the casting of the little boy. Who would it be? Where are they going to find him? And when we were on set, a story broke about the fact that Wayne Rooney was potentially appearing in the ad. It wasn't something that came from us, but because we were on set, and I believe one of the horses that we were using were also involved in an ad he was shooting, we got to maximise that for PR coverage. There were so many extras in the ad that every extra provided a PR opportunity for us. So first of all, we casted journalists as part of the ad, and that in itself created phenomenal coverage. But then because we used people from within the Hovis team and within Premier Foods, each of them were from a region, and within each region we got to maximise PR coverage.
And the reactions there were absolutely fantastic, partly because people were recognising their mates in the ad, and there was that whole, oh my God, it's so-and-so.
Our brief was to make this the biggest ad campaign ever, but we weren't allowed to show the ad to anybody until it was actually on TV. So it was quite a challenge in itself. What we did was we decided to treat this like a film launch. So first we had the ad, which we seeded out. And then we actually used lots of different spokespeople to talk about various content within the ad. So we had Tony Robinson, who is a TV historian, so he could talk about the different scenes. We also brought back the small loaf, and we've seeded that in with all the food writers, allowing us to get coverage really that went across the board. The small loaf is an iconic Hovis item in its own right, something that hadn't been on the shelves for quite some time. So having that in Harrods at the time of the launch created quite a central point for our communication about the loaf.
Television was incredibly important for this campaign because we wanted a big emotional return to the centre of British popular life, and television does that better than anything still these days. What was interesting was that we went for a very long time length. We chose 122 seconds, so a second for each of Hovis's years of history, and that in itself lent itself very easily to PR.
The real highlight, I think, was actually managing to steal 2 seconds out of Coronation Street, very much the nation's favourite soap opera, which is a real coup for the advertising media world. So that was the launch spot. So that's the one we drove everyone to, and was really, really exciting for everybody in the business.
I just love the thought there's 2 seconds lost somewhere of someone's Coronation Street. You know, there'll be probably some great plot twist that's missing.
There you go, lad.
So the first weekend, we were running 122 seconds and 90 seconds across all the major stations and multi-channel, and we'd reached 41% 1+ cover by the first weekend, which is really, really impressive and created huge talkability, capitalising on the PR.
The campaign lends itself really well to cinema as well because it's such a filmic approach, and to see 122 years of British history unfold on the big screen is something really special too.
We knew we were on something good almost immediately, actually. I remember watching the advert on TV myself in Coronation Street on a Friday night with my kids there, and just been really proud of seeing it on the telly. And then almost immediately my phone started to go mad with people sending me texts in terms of saying how much they'd enjoyed watching it themselves.
And the timing proved to be quite important because at a time when all was gloom and doom, people, I think, really related to the idea that there was still a lot of good stuff coming out of Britain, and Hovis was one of them.
The day it came out, and it's probably totally contrived by Frankie, but to me it felt real. I picked up the Daily Mirror from a newsstand near our office, and it said underneath the Daily Mirror, it said the best ad since sliced bread, but I mean on the red bit, the masthead, and that was the first day of the launch. So that, yeah, like I said, there's me thinking, wow, what an impact we've had, but Frankie probably pulled off some great PR stuff there.
The Monday, when we got back into the office, we were completely blown away because over the weekend we'd received literally thousands of emails from consumers on our consumer email address, and they were all incredibly positive.
I think the whole agency was truly excited by this. It was something that was talked about internally. People were expecting it. It was flagged up on the night of the launch so that everybody knew to watch it. And I think the resulting PR coverage was particularly exciting. So knowing that people are talking about it, your friends, family, relatives are all enthusing about this ad and feeling like you were part of something really special.
The campaign became a cultural phenomenon, so people would be crying in focus groups. We'd get thousands and thousands of letters saying well done for standing up for Britain again. We would have teachers requesting packs of the ads so that they could use it in their lessons. We were voted the advertising campaign of the decade by ITV viewers. So it was a real sense that there was a big populist campaign that the whole nation was getting behind.
Well, so we knew that people were going to seek out the ad in all sorts of ways, so we made sure it was as findable as possible in the worlds of YouTube. Actually, on the day of the launch, we'd had homepage takeovers on, I think, Virgin, MSN and Yahoo and Lycos to really maximise their sort of talkability and push people towards being able to see it in the digital space. They were then obviously able to pass it on to their friends, which helped boost the coverage overall.
Other media became really important later on in the campaign when we were trying to prove our product credentials. So press in particular was used to carry specific sub-brand and product messages.
So the first phase was about a month long, and we achieved 75 to 80% reach of our target audience, which was fantastic. We then moved to phase 2, where we reduced from 90 seconds to 10 seconds, so quite a bit of a shift. But we kept the talkability going by using the sort of short cut downs of the ad, so people were very much memorable to it. So we had a substantial national press campaign. It had slightly different copy, very much in the retro style of Hovis, but very much focused on the products and the product benefits, which enabled the brand to talk about best of both and wholemeal and their other ranges. And driving people directly into store.
So the Remembrance Sunday campaign was absolutely bang on. Not only was it very much part of Britishness, but it was something that the British public felt very close to. The product featured poppies on pack. We had a partnership with the Royal British Legion, with money being donated to obviously a phenomenal cause. And we've been continuing the British theme. Most recently, we've been launching 100% British wheat. As part of that, we created a crop circle. Again, this was a really strong, iconic image that we could give to the media as part of the story. The campaign was incredibly successful. It was evaluated as over £3 million because of the national print, because of the TV, because of the radio, and let's not forget the online coverage that spread across the world. And we get so many clients coming to us now saying, we want a Hovis.
When we first started this project, there was a share gap that was projected to be around 20 percentage points behind Warburton's. By the end of the campaign, it was only 6%. And that's really important because in that marketplace, that gap that we closed was worth about £300 million worth of sales.
Which is fantastic, and it's allowed us to do all sorts of things. So it's put us right back into the game with the retailers, who are now incredibly supportive of the brand, and also obviously with our consumers, who've gone from feeling like it was a brand that they couldn't really kind of trust from a quality point of view, and they didn't really know much about from a communications point of view, to a brand that they feel very, very trusting of.
Penetration for Hovis was already quite high at 72%, but that rose further to 75%. And meanwhile, frequency rocketed. And that's really unusual. I think in the whole database of IPA case studies, that is true of only 6%. Hovis sales rose by 14% year on year, and in terms of pound sterling rises, Hovis was the fastest growing FMCG brand in Britain. Once the cost of the campaign has been taken into account, we estimate that the campaign returned about £90.5 million worth of incremental profits, which is a return on investment of about 5 to 1.
Some key lessons, and in fact what we've now taken on board as best practice moving forward, is working with agencies right from the beginning. The more you can be involved in that process, the more that it can benefit the end result. Other lessons that are key in terms of maximising PR around an ad is great stills photography, making sure you've got really iconic images that sum up what the ad's about, because the print media is led by images, so the stronger the image, the better chance you've got of coverage.
Going forward, there's just one thing we have to hold on to, and that's this word good. And on mischief, the product is good for you, but the female audience probably aren't going to be interested in seeing another commercial just about women eating things that are good for them, and isn't it good to do this and good to do that. There's loads of those. I think the thing we always have to remember is Hovis has some grit to it. We have grit and we are grounded, and we can celebrate being mischievous, or we can celebrate being naughty as a child. Most brands couldn't go anywhere near that. They wouldn't dare. It would just go off the scale in the wrong direction in a research group. But Hovis can, and it should do.
So if you think what Hovis actually achieved, this is a brand in a category beset with price promotion, hemorrhaging profitability all over the place. And yet this campaign achieved around about a 500% return on marketing investment. Now this is creativity and the power of creativity laid bare for all to see.
I think I should really stress that there was a real sense of team in this, and that sounds, I'm cringing inside saying that. We weren't all sat around on beanbags and stuff, there was some rows and there was some friction, and what was very, very clear was everyone really, really cared. It's about not cutting corners, and everyone who contributed to that, I think, will have that work, that they'll be proud of that work forever.
I think this campaign showed genuine bravery from the clients particularly. FMCG brands so often work around the incremental margins that they have at their disposal, and Hovis were in a really, really tight spot that wasn't going to do the job. I'm delighted that they had the guts to really go for it and maximise the impact, and they really got the results they deserved. It truly was the Renaissance campaign that they were looking for.
It's a bit like taking over a old house that was once a beautiful old home that's become a little bit of a wreck over time, and restoring it back to its kind of former splendour. And you can take a couple of steps back from it and you can look at it and you can think, I did something really special there. So no, that's incredibly rewarding.
On a personal level, it's just been a dream campaign to work on because it's an iconic brand, it's won loads of creative awards, done brilliantly in terms of effectiveness, and it's the sort of campaign that your mum phones you up and says, "Did you do that?" And that's what we all want to do, isn't it?
Hey lad, is it past your bedtime?